Ma'am, we are live.
Hello. Hello, good evening, all of you, and a very happy Navratri on the second day of Navratri. I'm warm welcoming to all students, participants, and our guest. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Today, I would like to introduce Dr. Sunanda Ma'am Srivastav. Sunanda Ma'am Srivastav, she is delivering lecture on the homecoming of Devi from the abroad. She is a retired superintendent archaeologist from ASI. She had worked in the archaeological museums Sarnath, Vaishali, Purana Kila, and the Allahabad Museum. She had published a research paper in the various journals on the topic of the heritage, law, art, history, iconography, museum, and the numismatic studies and antiquities. Second day is dedicated to Brahmacharini, Mother Goddess. Brahmacharini, it means a devoted female student who lives in an ashram with her guru along with the other students. The iconography of a Brahmacharini, she wears a white clothes, hold a japmala in right hand and kamandala in the left hand. Now I would like to request Sunanda ma'am, please bless us with your knowledge, and over to you ma'am.
Thank you very much, Lajja,
Thank
introducing
you
me
ma'am.
in such kind words. Namaskar to
Thank
all.
you.
And I wish a happy Navratri to all present here. First of all, I would like to thank Indology Foundation and in particular Sri Lalit Mishra to invite me on this platform uh, to deliver a talk and give a presentation on homecoming of Devi from abroad. So, as we all know, Navratri is a time of year when we all celebrate the cult of Devi and seek her blessings for ourselves and our families. Devi occupies a distinct place in religious and mythological traditions since time immemorial. She is manifested in various forms, Durga being most prominent and popular among them. Its renditions in stone, terracotta, metal, wood, paintings, manuscripts, and other mediums are found strewn throughout the country. Images are found installed in temples ubiquitously across the country, and not only Devi images, but also various deities who were worshipped in their different aspects, different forms. We find many deities in the temples dedicated to them and other deities also. These are all part of our rich cultural heritage. So, when we talk of our cultural heritage, I can say that the definition of cultural heritage varies from one country to the other. In India, monuments, archaeological sites, and remains constitute the immovable, and antiquities and art treasures, the movable cultural property. Now, both of these, movable and immovable, face every day different kind of threats. And the threats are more to movable cultural property because it can be easily accessed and vandalized, stolen, and taken away. So I'll talk about the threats first. One is easy accessibility. Easy accessibility, by when I say easy accessibility, I It is the monuments, especially in the remote areas, which are in the every nook and corners of our country. And many of them are inaccessible for people there. And more so, the monuments and temples, most of the temples are such that they are not being worshipped every day. So it's very easy to target them for vandalism and thefts. And the thieves and traffickers always eye for them to the monuments which can be targeted for theft and vandalized. So it's very easy to lift the antiquities from there. And another thing is treasure hunting. It's a common belief that there is a hidden treasure in temples, especially under the seat of main deity. So, in pursuit of treasure, these hunters dig away the entire temple, and whether they get it or not, sometimes they get some coins or some such treasure, and the stolen antiquities, which are stolen from temples, etc., they are subjected to illicit trade and trafficking. Because as we all know that Indian antiquities are in great demand in foreign art markets. So immediately this is the natural this thing that after the theft, it is sent to foreign land through illegal mode. And this happens because of lack of awareness and ignorance about legislations. When I say lack of awareness, most of our masses, they are not aware of the richness of our heritage, and also they are ignorant about the legislations, that they don't know that there are certain laws which are made to protect our cultural heritage. So the national legislations are for immovable cultural property, the Ancient Monument and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958, and the other is the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Amendment and Validation Act 2010. The movable cultural property is covered by the Indian Treasure Trove Act 1878 and the Antiquities and Art Treasures Act 1972. Here, for purpose of this presentation, the Antiquities and Art Treasures Act 72, which we'll call as AT Act, is relevant. But here I'll mention only section 3, which is for the regulation of export trade. So section 3 of the AT Act lays down that it shall not be lawful for any person other than central government or any authority or agency authorized by the central government to export any antiquity or art treasures except under and in accordance with terms and conditions of a permit issued for the purpose by such authority as may be prescribed. That means that no antiquity or art treasure can be taken out of the country without any valid permit issued by the Director General Archaeological Survey of India. The DGASI is the competent authority to issue such permits as provided in the Rule 3 of the Antiquities and Art Treasures Rule 73. And these exports are completely temporary in nature. Most of the time, they are issued for the purpose of exhibitions, which are sent abroad for a particular period. And after ending the period, the antiquities are to be brought back. Notwithstanding these legal instruments, thefts occur from both central and state protected monuments and sites, but more often from the unprotected ones, as I mentioned earlier also. And after the theft, the natural way of disposal is subsequent smuggling and clandestine trade. So we can say that vandalism and theft of antiquities and smuggling and clandestine trade are interrelated, and they are executed in a very well planned, meticulous manner. And a very smooth network works for this business. So, in spite of all these actions of miscreants, efforts are being made to retrieve the lost cultural property and restore to the place of origin. And many government agencies are working towards it. Archaeological Survey of India is also assiduously working towards the retrieval of antiquities from abroad. And so far, antiquities in 46 cases have been repatriated. Here I'll discuss about 3 cases. All of them are images of Devis. Because of the time when we are discussing this repatriation, I'll take up the cases of Devis which had been stolen from the temples where they were installed and worshipped, smuggled, but repatriated successfully, and now they are in custody of the government. So first of all, I'll take this Durga Mahishmardini, which is 9th to 10th century CE, and from Kashmir region. This is a beautiful image carved out of green schist, which is locally available stone in the valley. And as you can see, Durga is standing in Alhirasan, and this is 18 armed Durga. Rare depiction. And most of the 18 arms are intact. So, in clockwise direction, this 18 arms carry from the right hand. I'll take from right hand. The lowest right hand is picking up a shara from Tudir, and the other ones have Pash, Trishul, Khadg, Parashu, Musal, Vajra, Chakra, Khad, and Shankh. The corresponding left hands hold Chetak, Dhanush, Ghanta, Padma, Ankush, Akshamala, a drinking vessel, and she is holding a diminutive demon by one hand. The image is remarkable for its lively narration, particularly the crumpling figure of Buffalo transfiguring into human form and then being vanquished by Devi thrusting the Trishul. And this all is rendered in a sequence. So the entire composition has an eloquent manifestation unfolding the legend of Mahishmardini, intertwined with dynamism, strength, and vigor, depicting the ferocious form of the deity. It is just like an animated figure. One by one, the scene unfolds, and we are marveled at the legend of Mahishasur-Mardini. So this image was under worship in a small local temple known as Mata Ka Mandir at Dengapura or Tengapona in district Pulwama, J&K. Sometime in 1990s, during militancy in the state, the idol, along with an image of Vaikunt Narayan, disappeared from the temple. So this image was stolen and smuggled to USA, and from there it was sent or purchased by Linden Museum, Stuttgart, Germany, where it surfaced. This information was given to the ASI by one Shri Rakesh Kaul. He is the chairman, Spearonomics, IIC, New Jersey, USA, a Kashmiri Pandit settled in the USA. So he requested the ASI to initiate the return of the image, keeping the sentiments of Kashmiri Pandits. So the ASI started its process for retrieval, and first of all, we tried to find out if it is published in any of the journal. So we found that both the images were published in the official bulletin of ASI, that is Indian Archaeology 1980-81, a review. But this publication did not accompany any photograph. The second publication where we found this image published was by Pratapaditya Pal, who published it in his edited volume in 2009, naming Goddess Durga, the Power and the Glory, and this was published by Mark Publication. So Pal published the image and he gave the caption, Durga battling Mahishasur, Kashmir, present location unknown. And in footnote, he mentioned that unfortunately, the temple at Dengpura was abandoned in mid-90s with the exodus of Hindu Pandit community from Kashmir, and the image too disappeared. Its present whereabouts are unknown. So, on our request from ASI, the matter was taken up by Embassy of India, Berlin, Germany, and we requested them to initiate the process. And this process started in February 2013. So it was found that Linden Museum, Stuttgart, purchased it from the gallery Art of the Past, New York, in the year 2000 for a sum of US dollar 2,50,000. The copy of the invoice was also obtained by them, which indicated the transaction between the seller and the buyer. So when it was ascertained that the image is with the Linden Museum, a team of archaeologists from the ASI visited the museum for authentication of the image and modalities of retrieval. We visited the museum, and in May 2014, so we were taken to the South Asian section of Linden Museum where the image was displayed. And on minute examination of material, style and workmanship, it was concluded that the Durga was indeed the same which was reported stolen. When this was ascertained, a meeting was held with the authorities of Linden Museum, and also here in the Linden Museum, we met the director and the senior curator of South and East Asia section. So the delegation included myself and a colleague of mine, Mr. K.C. Noryal, both of us superintending archaeologists, and Consul General of India, Mr. Sevila Naik, and some other officials from the embassy. So we met the authorities, and in the Linden Museum, and also to the Consular Ministry of Science, Research and Arts, State Government of Baden-Württemberg. So they wanted us to explain the exact purpose of the retrieval. So we told them that first of all, this is to discourage the illegal trafficking, and we were attempting to bring back most of the, or we can say all of the images which have been illegally trafficked all over the world. And the second thing was to respect the religious sentiments of Kashmiri Pandits. And we shared with them the documentary proofs which we had carried, the copies of Indian Archaeology Review and the Pratapaditya Pal's book. But the museum was a bit reluctant, and they were very hesitant to work for this retrieval. They were very concerned about the probable future location if the image was at all retrieved. So we told them that we can send it either to the place of origin or to the state museum, that is SPS museum in the Srinagar, or the third option was that to keep it within the custody of the ASI. So the museum offered us that if the location was unchanged, I mean the retrieval was done on paper, but it was left at Lyndon Museum itself, so there could be possibilities of joint research, conservation, exhibition, publication, and scholarship programs under an AMU. So we told them that since the image was illegally exported, it had to be repatriated back to India, which was also in conformity with UNESCO Convention 1970. So museum said that it would be difficult for them to pursue the matter if they do not have an idea as to what will finally happen to the Durga. So the second meeting was at the Baden-Württemberg, the Ministry of Science and Culture, and there were some other queries. They presented to us the documents to prove that the museum bought the image some 13 years ago in Singapore from a private collector who had it in his possession since 1950. The sculpture was presented before the acquisition committee of the ministry and the museum, consisting of all the directors of all state museums and other officers of the ministry. And it was acquired for a price of US dollar 250,000 and in good faith. So they told us that ASI needed to make a detailed account supported by further documentary proof and also the latest legal status of Subhash Kapoor. And what were we doing with the other antiquities in the other part of the world which were sold by Art of the Past owned by Subhash Kapoor. They assured that German side was keen to work a satisfactory solution.
Hello. Sorry, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt you. Please, ma'am, आप इसको display mode में कर देंगे, तो then student will also see properly.
So is it not on display?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so from where can I do the display mode?
From the bottom, ma'am. Yes.
From the bottom?
Yeah. Just 1 second, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm not able to find it out.
Just 1 second. I'll call to Aman. Aman sir. Hello, Aman sir. Are you there?
मैम प्लीज ऊपर में जहाँ वो है मैम आपका का जो टैब है आपका, नो मैम नॉट शेयर मैम, यहाँ पे मैम इस तरफ नीचे मैम आप अपने कर्सर को नीचे लाइए मैम।
हाँ
एकदम नीचे।
हाँ
मैम जहाँ पे नोट्स के बगल में मैम।
हाँ ये
नो मैम नेक्स्ट मैम नेक्स्ट मैम
और
नेक्स्ट मैम नेक्स्ट नो
अभी अभी भी नहीं हुआ।
ठीक है मैम, अब ठीक है मैम,
अब ठीक है। So can I continue?
Please carry on.
Okay. So on our return from Stuttgart, Germany, we planned a visit to Srinagar to meet the Special Secretary, Tourism and Culture there and discuss the matter there. So myself and the then Director of Antiquity, Dr. D. N. Debri, we visited Srinagar and met the Special Secretary, Tourism and Culture, along with the Director Archaeology J&K, RO, I mean Registration Officer and other officials. So we discussed the matter that the Linen Museum wants to know that where will it be displayed or stored after the return, if at all it happens. So they told us that the SPS Museum was then in their old building and they are planning to shift in a big new building and they will designate a place for display for the idol. So we requested them to write a letter to this effect, which they wrote to us. And when we further requested them to find out that if any FIR was registered or if the antiquity was registered in the under the section 14 of the Antiquities and Art Treasure Act, they happily cooperated and found out the FIR which said that it was stolen in the intervening night of 10th 11th January 91. Registration certificate was also procured from the government of J&K, where we found that it was registered on 29 July 1981. So, armed with all these evidences, we made a presentation, the case was presented, and a formal request for retrieval was made to Linen Museum and government of Baden-Württemberg. So it was decided to be returned. But at that time, Ambassador of Germany to India visited Srinagar to make himself sure to see the place in SPS Museum, which was designated for Durga. So this was returned and we thought that it will take a lot of time, but it didn't. And the image was handed over by the government of Federal Republic of Germany and the government of state of Baden-Württemberg to the Embassy of India at Berlin in a brief handing over ceremony held at representative office of the state of Baden-Württemberg in Berlin on 23rd September 2015. I was very fortunate to be associated with this retrieval from day one and finally to be deputed to Berlin for taking over the image. So, after completing all the formalities, the Mahishmardini was transported from Berlin on 24th September 2015 and reached New Delhi on 25th September 2015. Soon after, during the third intergovernmental consultation between the two governments, the unveiling of the image was held in the gracious presence of Honorable PM Shri Narendra Modi and the Chancellor, Federal Republic of Germany, Angela Merkel. So now I'll show you some photographs about the handing over. This is when it was returned at Berlin. Here I am there, the Consul General is there, and the officers from Ministry and Linen Museum. This is unveiling of the image in the presence of both the head of the states. And later this idol was handed over to the government of J&K on 22nd March 2016 and now on display in SPS Museum, Srinagar. This is where it is displayed now. So now this Durga has completed a long journey from Mata Ka Mandir, Pulwama to USA to Linden Museum to Berlin and back to New Delhi and then to Srinagar. So it has completed a full circle, I can say. So this was the journey of Durga Maheshmardini of Kashmir. So now I'll take another image, and that is Uma Parmeshwari. This is Uma Parmeshwari of 11th century CE. As you can see, this is a beautiful Chola bronze, and this has also got the same fate as the Durga Maheshmardini, from temple to USA and from there to Singapore and back. So see, this measures 57 into 12 centimeters and elegantly stands on a tired lotus pedestal in Tribhanga Mudra. Her right hand is in Katak Mudra to hold the Nilotpal or blue lotus, whereas the left one extends along the thighs in Lolahast. The sharp facial features and serene countenance are giving a divine glow on the face. Crowned with high Karanda Mukut, flowers decorating the hair and falling on the shoulders, Devi is bedecked in har with intricate design, kundalas, keyura kankanas, and nuparas. Uma is attired in an upaveet and dhoti with wavy pattern extending up to ankle. It is fastened with a low waist bejeweled mekhala. The poised body with curved torso, slender arms, slim waist, and long legs in a flowing rhythm are the characteristics of a true Chola bronze. This image was purchased by Asian Civilization Museum, Singapore, and that is ACM, again from the gallery Art of the Past USA for US dollar 6,50,000. At the time of purchase, the ACM was provided by the Art of the Past with an invoice certifying that the sculpture had been bought from a previous gallery in India in 70s. A letter of guarantee certifying its provenance and authenticity from Art of the Past was also provided. Obviously, these documents were fabricated by Subhash Kapoor. So, look at the modus operandi of the robbers, how they lifted this image and other images from the remotely located temples of South India. When Subhash Kapoor, owner of the gallery, was arrested from Germany, it surfaced that the idol was stolen in 2006 from Brihadishwar Temple, Sri Puranthan village, district Ariyalur, Tamil Nadu, along with 7 other antiquities. A notable bronze among these was that of Nataraja, which was sold to National Gallery of Australia, that is NGA, Canberra, Australia. One of the other was a beautiful Ganesha, which was purchased by Toledo Museum of Art, USA. So we can say the entire Shiva family was taken away from their abode to the USA. The traffickers adopted a very typical modus operandi. The Shiva temple, which was in a derelict condition and locked for more than 10 years without any worship, was targeted for the theft. Investigations unveiled a criminal conspiracy between Subhash Kapoor, owner of Art of the Past, and his local contact Sanjeevi Ashokan in India long before 2008. This Ashokan hired some local thieves who broke open the lock and committed the theft twice in the month of January and May 2006. They took away 8 idols in all. After the theft, the thieves fixed the lock with adhesive in both the instances. In the meanwhile, these miscreants procured similar looking modern metal figures and mingled these stolen idols with them. They managed to get the handicraft certificate from Handicraft Development Office, Ministry of Textiles in Chennai. And these objects, including the stolen Nataraj, Uma, and Ganesha, were clandestinely exported in the garb of handicrafts in 3 consignments. As I told, the Nataraj was sold to NGA, Uma to ACM, and Ganesha to Toledo Museum. This illicit trade was carried out by a Chennai-based agency, Everstar International Services, Mamallapuram, for sending them to New York to Nimbus Export Import Incarnation to also this was also owned by Subhash Kapoor. And since the temple was locked and not in regular worship, this incident did not get noticed for about 2 years till the officials of HR and CED visited the shrine to shift the images to another temple which was under their protection. What happened that since this temple was in a derelict condition and not safe, and these officials of HR and CED planned that the idols should be shifted because they are under threat. But when they opened the temple, the threat was already materialized and all the images gone from there. Then in the year 2008, the theft case was registered with the Tamil Nadu police in Vikramlingam and then transferred to the Idol Wing CID. So when the theft and subsequent smuggling came to light and came to the notice of ACM, they issued a press statement on 8th January 2014. And in the meanwhile, there was a legal action by USA against the Art of the Past and Subhash Kapoor. And the USA alerted the ACM that 30 objects, including 2 antiquities, Uma Parmeshwari, and the other one was Gilded Virgin Mary and Christ altar, purchased from the said gallery, might have been stolen from India. So the ACM drew the attention of the High Commission of India to Singapore to these facts, who informed the matter to the Ministry of Culture and in turn Ministry to ASI. At the same time, Vijay Kumares, an art enthusiast and blogger, posted the photograph of Uma Parmeshwari on their website http://ipporg.in. So when this incident came to light, the NHB, on the advice of HCI, invited the ASI to discuss about the retrieval of antiquities because there was a series of discussion between HCI and National Heritage Board Singapore, and they advised to invite the ASI to discuss the matter. So a team of 2 archaeologists, including myself and Dr. D.N. Dimri, the then Director Antiquity, visited the ACM in May 2015 for authentication of the images and to discuss the modalities of restitution. So when we reached there, the main gallery was closed for renovation and the antiquities were shifted to Heritage Conservation Center, also owned by NHB. So we examined both the objects, the Christ altar and the Uma, at Heritage Conservation Center. Christ altar was also examined, but since there was no theft report in India of any such object, the illegal export could not be established. But on minute examination of Uma, it was found that it bore all the features of a typical Chola rose. The image was heavily patinated over the year to the extent that the patina had become the part of the image. Having the wear and tear marks, its edges were rounded off. there was no room for doubt that it was an original Chola bronze. So the next day, a meeting was held between the Indian delegation and the authorities of ACM, NHB, and Director Indian Heritage Center, Dr. Gauri Paramu Krishnan. Dr. Dimri, the then Director Antiquity, mentioned the strong cultural ties between India and Singapore. He also brought to the notice of the authorities that several objects of Indian origin had been illegally exported and purchased by many museums across the world. But after knowing about their illegal acquisition, the museum authorities expressed their willingness to return them. And ACM, in addition to the two objects, should also facilitate the Indian team to examine the other 28 objects which were bought from Art of the Past. We further, then the authorities of Singapore, they said that they had examined all the papers and certificate of authenticity and provenance provided by Subhash Kapoor. So we further told that the documents of ownership and other relevant information about the objects purchased by ACM must have been thoroughly verified by them. However, it is presumed that they were fake. So Singapore side extended all cooperation and agreed to return UMA after carrying out some legal formalities. They also provided the entire list of 30 objects purchased from Art of the Past and allowed us to examine them at their Heritage Conservation Center. So after completing all the formalities, Uma Parmeshwari image was returned. It was handed over to the ASI on 6 November 2015 in a repatriation ceremony at the Heritage Convention Center, Singapore, and received back in India on 28 December 2015. This was further handed over to the Idolwing CID Tamil Nadu Police for investigations on 25th February 2016 and presently housed in Kumbakonam Icon Center in safe custody. So this was the journey of Uma Parmeshwari, again from Tamil Nadu to USA, then Singapore, and back to Delhi, and then Tamil Nadu. Now, this is the photograph of repatriation ceremony. Our ASI officer and the NHB officer, they are there. This is also the handing over ceremony. And now I'll come to another Durga image, that is Mahish Mardini of 8th century CE. This beautiful image was under worship at Bajanath temple at Chakravarteshwar temple at Bajnath in Almora district, Uttarakhand. This 8-armed Mahishasur Mardini slays the buffalo demon. The right hands of the deity carry a trishul thrusting on the Mahish, Chakra, Shaktayudh and Khadga ready to strike. The left hands have Ketak, Ghanta, Dhanush and human head of the demon emerging out of the subjugated body of Mahisha. Devi is shown in full action in Aliyad Mudra with all the weapons activated. The long mala is displaced in the action and enraged expression with drooping eyes, watching the crumpling demon truly express the ferocity of Mahishasur Mardini. And she is adorned with Karanda Mukut, Kundalas, Hara, Kankanas, Nupuras, and wearing an ankle-length wavy lower garment, a tight-fitting blouse. The slender body is stretched out while trampling the demon with her right foot and piercing his back with 3-pronged shool. Being attacked by Devi vigorously, the human form of the demon holding a sword is trying to escape out of the fallen Mahisha. Her Vahan Simha is attacking the beast on his rear and chewing his tails. So as I told, this image was taken away from Chakravarteshwar Temple, Bajnath, Almora, that is in Kumaon, Uttarakhand, under the circumstances not known. It appears to be stolen before 1976. Actually, our AT Act 1972 was enforced in 1976, and most of the images either have taken before 1976, and if later the smugglers make a certificate that they were purchased before 1976. It was illegally exported to USA and appeared in art markets sometime in 1980. And the image was showcased there in Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York. Museum, however, did not disclose their source of acquisition. So, when the matter of repatriation came to notice, our research showed that it was found published in a publication, Archaeology of Kumaon by Kanti Prasad Nautiyal in 1969. So we can very well assume that till 1969, the image was there in the temple and in worship. And it appeared in the art market in 80s. So between these 10 years, it was taken away, stolen, taken away, and put in the art market. So when this published reference was brought to the notice of the Met Museum, they expressed their willingness to return the image. And it came back to India on 19th August 2018. Now this is presently displayed in the Gallery of Confiscated and Retrieved Antiquities, Purana Kila. So this was the journey of 3 Devi images which were taken away from their abode where they were worshipped and taken to international art market with a hefty price tag. But due to the efforts of Government of India and some conscious citizens, they were brought back and now they are in the safe custody of the government. Thank you very much.
Hello, am I audible
Yes.
to you? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Suninda ma'am, for such a wonderful lecture series. We learned a lot from you, and we are lucky to have this opportunity. And we learn a lot, really.
Thank you very
Me
much.
and as well as the Indology Foundation will always appreciate, and we are thankful for this. And thank you from bottom of our heart. Now, I would like to request Dr. Meena Kutte ma'am, the principal of SNDT College, Mumbai, collaborated with the Indian Indology Foundation. I would like to call Kutte ma'am, please join us and say a few words to our Indology Foundation. Over to you, ma'am.
Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Oh, Dr. Meena Kutte from Women's University. I would like to something our university. This university, Srimati Nathbai Thakarasi Women's University. Yes, and university in 5 years, and the first university yeah, India will find that Maharshi Karve went to Japan, went in Japan in 1913. First women's university in the world was started That was the inspiration. Maharshi Karve was inspired. He went there, he saw that university and decided to establish women's university in India and established at Pune Road at near there are three main campuses. The headquarters of SNDT Women's University is at Churchgate, Mumbai. The another quarter is another at Juhu and is at Curve Road. It is specially for women's only. Women admitted here, but staff is true. Shall I?
Yes, ma'am, you are on. Yeah, please, you are audible. Please turn your video also on. You are not visible at all. So we would request, please come on the video.
It was at Women's University in 1937. The Sriman Thakursi, Thakursi, the name of his mother, the Thakursi family donated 15 lakhs, and the main building was erected at Churchgate campus, and it was renamed as Sri Satyabhai Damodar Thakursi Women's University. Now we have completed already 105 years, celebrated our century too, and at present, Shashikala Vanjari is the Vice Chancellor of this university. The Vice Chancellor is Professor Vishnu Thagre, and the Registrar is Dr. Deepak Deshpande. Ideology Foundation and SNDT Women's University, nice collaboration, and that's why we are here to introduce. And we found that all the programs are 50,000 students are taking in various branches of SNDT Women University. The strength of this university is that we have all India jurisdiction. So you'll find that our university, our colleges, 13 conducted colleges are there of the university, and our colleges are established in the affiliated colleges are in 7 states. You'll find that not a single university in India this has there are in 175 colleges are there and departments are there. 40 departments are run by the university, and the university is progressing. The main aim, the motto of the university is Sanskruta Sri Parashakti. That is, an enlightened woman is a strength of infinite strength. And that's why we are working for the women's empowerment. And now, in this Navaratri Parva, we are celebrating Navadurga or Navaratri, and we are really fortunate that Women's University is having collaboration with Indianology Foundation, and that's why I would like to welcome you from on behalf of SNDT Women's University to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, to bless us with your knowledge, with your nice speech, ma'am. Now I would like to hello. Now I would like to call Lalit sir. Lalit sir, over to you. Hello. Lalit sir, your voice is breaking. Sorry, actually that is some net problem. And thank you, Dr. Meena ma'am, for such a wonderful speech. And I would also like to thank you, Nandan Shastri sir. Special thanks to all of you, Sunanda ma'am, and our participants to join us. Today we are going to deliver 2 lectures, and Dr. Sarita Rani ma'am will take a lecture 7 to 7:45, and her topic is Vedic एवं Greek दर्शनों में ज्ञान एवं तत्व की तुलनात्मक समीक्षा, and the second lecture is Dr. Bharti Nirmala ma'am, who is delivering lecture on the topic of Antar Yatra, a journey into a self, 7:45 to 8:30. So I would like to request to all of you, please join us tomorrow, same time, 7 p.m. Thank you, ma'am. Aman sir, over to you.
Thank you, viewers. Please join us tomorrow.
Thank you, Sunanda ma'am, for such a lovely